I want to welcome everyone this evening to our candidate forum. My name is Andy Wilkie. I serve as the Executive Vice President of Greater Mankato Growth. I am one of your moderators this evening. I am joined by my good friend Joe Spear of the Mankato Free Press as co-moderator. I want to thank Joe and the Mankato Free Press for your partnership with this forum. I also want to extend a special note of gratitude to the City of Mankato for allowing us to use this space tonight. I also want to thank all of you for attending tonight. This event is being recorded and will be available online at greatermankatoelections.com. For those of you that don't know, Greater Mankato Growth is the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development organization for the Greater Mankato region. Our membership includes more than 900 businesses, nonprofits, and public partners. We also operate Visit Mankato, the City Center Partnership, and Green Seam. Our goal tonight is simple. We want to give voters a chance to hear from candidates directly about issues that impact the business and economic vitality of our region. But first, I'd like to set a few expectations for our audience to help us present an engaging and civil dialogue this evening. We have more questions than we have time for, so we ask that you help us make the most of our time by holding your applause until the end of the forum, and there be no shouting or heckling, especially of the moderators. This evening's format is as follows. I appreciate all of you that laughed to that because it's not the first time you've all heard that. This evening's format is as follows. Each candidate will be asked a question and given 2 to 3 minutes to answer. This evening, we're more interested in a robust discussion and getting those candidates' thoughts on issues, so it may take longer in some instances. Any follow-up questions or discussion will be at the discretion of the moderators. These questions have been put together by me and Joe, along with input from the Greater Mankato Growth Advocacy Committee. They have not been shared with the candidates. And lastly, some of you have submitted some questions at the entrance. Those questions will be delivered up to me later on, and we will ask some of those as time allows. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce the candidates for this evening's forum. House District 18A, Jeff Brand and Erica Schwartz. House District 18B, Luke Frederick and Dar Vosberg. House District 22A, Bjorn Olson and Marisa Ullman. Please join me in thanking them for being here this evening. Now we'll begin with our first question. Joe Spear has the honor, and we'll start with Ms. Schwartz.
Thanks, Andy. And the Free Press is happy to sponsor these kind of events. We really believe the public should participate in democracy, and all of you are doing that here tonight, so thank you. We'll start with our first question. It's about who, why, and what. So tell us who you are and why you are running for the Minnesota House of Representatives. Also, please share what top 3 issues you will personally work to address at the legislature.
Yep, you're good. Yep, you had it there. There you go. Perfect.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Joe and Annie, for hosting tonight. I want to thank everybody in the audience for taking the time for being here today. My name is Erica Schwartz, and I'm a longtime resident of Nicollet. I recently got married, and I'm married into a small business. And before that, I was a single parent. I raised my daughter as a single parent. At the age of 25, I was engaged to a young Marine who passed away fatally in a car accident. After he passed away, I realized I was pregnant with our daughter. So throughout her entire life, I worked 2 jobs off and on, putting myself through school. And now being married and running a business, I see a need for a change. Change is not easy, but it is necessary. So I'm a working mom working hard to make changes. At the small business, we own the convenience store, which is a Nicollet Mart where I live. I get a front row line to see people struggling just to buy the bare essentials. I have people coming to my counter who are buying $2 worth of gas and paying me in quarters. I recently got the pleasure of serving a cup of coffee to a senior citizen, and the total was $1.35. He asked me for a cup of ice cream, and I went and rung him up. When the senior citizen opened up his wallet, he had a tattered dollar bill that was in his wallet. And I was like, oh my gosh, he does not have enough money. What am I gonna do? So I told him, you know what, let me bless you with a cup of coffee today. The senior citizen, he pulled out his coin pouch, and he came up with all the coin. So I graciously took his money, and then I said, thank you for coming in today. It was really nice talking to you. And I go, hey, you left some coin on the table. Could you do me a favor? Why don't you come see me next weekend at my store? I'm usually here working every weekend. He then said, honey, I want to bless you today. Here's 85 cents. It's for you. I keep that 85 cents on my desk to remind me why I'm running. I see people struggling every day just to buy the bare essentials. As a mother, as a former single mother, and as a mother now, I see the struggles that families have right now just to afford cost of living right now. And that's why I'm running. When I'm at the doors talking to people, they express to me cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. One of my three reasons why I'm running is affordability because of the business that I'm in, public safety, and education. Thank you, everybody.
Jeff Brandt, question to you, same thing.
Well, thanks for having us tonight, and we'll try to keep it civil, I hope. My name is Jeff Brand, State Representative District 18A. I've served 2 non-consecutive terms in the legislature. I'm looking for a re-election in this term. The reason why I'm running, a little bit about myself, I guess I should state first. So my lovely wife, Genevieve, is here tonight. Thanks for being here to support me. We have 2 kids in St. Peter. Part of why I'm running is for our kids, for our youth, to make sure that our schools are fully funded, to make sure that they have the mental health supports they need, and they have meals in their stomachs so they can learn. I think that that's really important. And also, at the state level, we also have a lot to do with our higher education, and we want to make sure that our higher education is fit so they can continue to teach the next generation of workforce employees that we are going to have in Minnesota the skills and the knowledge that they need to do what's best for Minnesota in the future. Another reason why I'm running is because I think that at the end of the day, our healthcare system is sick. And we really do need to do things to address the affordability, but also the access as well. And so that's part of the reason why I'm running. And I think we're going to have a great opportunity at the legislature next year to tackle both affordability and access. And the last reason I'm running is because I want to help create a vibrant economy in Minnesota. I'm a small business owner of more than 13 years in the community, and I know what it's like to run a business, and I want to bring that knowledge to the legislature yet again, come back to the legislature and continue to do things in economic development, but also in workforce development. I currently sit as the vice chair of the Workforce Development Committee, and we've got some great things that are going to be happening in the next few years, and I'm really happy and proud to hopefully be a part of that. So thanks for being here today, and I look forward to the questions.
Thanks, Jeff. Dar Vosberg.
There you go. One more.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Green light's hard to see.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for having us here today. My name is Dar Vosberg. I am a small business owner. I did not grow up in Mankato. I grew up in the Twin Cities. I was born in Minneapolis. I lived in Edina. I graduated from Minnetonka High School, and then I came down to this area and I went to Gustavus for 2 years, became broke, and then transferred over to Mankato State, and I stuck around for a few years. Then my parents asked me to come help them. My parents have been entrepreneurs ever since I've been a baby. They asked me to help them come run their dry cleaning business, so I did that for 9 years. I got married to someone from Mankato. I joke because he's a recovering Democrat. We had a choice of where we're going to live. I chose to come to Mankato because I really liked the area. So I got my real estate license. I started selling real estate 27 years ago, which is when I moved back here, a little bit after we got married. So I own my own company. I've owned my own company for 20 years, and I've got 6 agents right now. I've had as many as 28. My parents own a storage business in Mankato, and I've been running that, and we have close to 300 storage units. I also have a passion for holistic health, and I started a Southern Minnesota thermography, which is radiation-free breast and body scanning, about 2.5 years ago. So I started that with one of my tenants and friends. So I have a passion for health and holistic health, and I have a passion for business as being a business owner for 27 years. And it's really hard to narrow down to the top 3 things that I would focus on. But as a realtor, I would want to focus on housing. I mean, housing prices, I'm well aware that it is not fun trying to buy a house. What is the reason? We need to get to the bottom of why it's so expensive for housing and also for rentals. Another thing I'd like to work on is spending. We have a spending problem in this state. We need to make sure that we're not spending, we're being fiscally responsible for our constituents. And then another one would be education. I do not have kids, But I'm well aware that the students are not reading and writing and doing math at the grade level, like 50%. I'm concerned why they're graduating, because they are our future leaders and they are our future employees. So we need to get to the bottom of that and find out what the root cause of those things are. So,
Thank you, Dar. Luke Frederick.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Luke Frederick. I just want to say thank you to GMG and the Free Press for hosting this event. A little bit about me. I'm a Mankato kid. I grew up here, went to school at MSU, and I got a job over in St. Peter at the state hospital, to where I still work today. I've worked there for about 20 years, and so that kind of gave me a firsthand look at what mental illness is and what some of the most extreme cases of mental illness in the state can look like. And so a lot of my policy work then in the legislature is also about access to mental health. One of the things that I want to build on, and so one of the priorities that I have, is building on the investments we made in this last biennium. We were able to get $1.5 million to establish the nation's first Center for Rural Behavioral Health. We know in Minnesota, there's 50% of the population is up in the 4-county metro, yet they have 80% of the mental health providers, right? So greater Minnesota, equal amounts of population, but we are fighting over 20% of the providers. And so that center that's going to be at MSU is going to be a space where not only are they going to be a public-facing clinic for the community to access mental health, they are also going to be training future mental health providers. And as my colleagues on the other side of the aisle said when I was working this bill in committee, is, Luke, if you are successful in Mankato, you need to copy and paste that all across the state in all of the districts. And so that's going to be something that I'm going to be advocating for. Another priority for me is going to be making sure that when we look at state dollars, we are investing in Minnesota. Again, building on the work that we did this last biennium, we were able to get Mankato $48 million to invest in their wastewater treatment facility. Now that's more than just Mankato. That's Mankato, North Mankato, Eagle Lake, Skyline, Lake Washington Township, and so on. That investment of state dollars, while some people were advocating for rebate checks to get sent out to every taxpayer in the tune of $2,000 to $3,000, that investment that we made here in Mankato will save every ratepayer close to $30,000 over the lifetime of that facility. So I ask people, do you want $2,000 now, or do you want $30,000 over the lifetime of that facility? So that is going to be another priority of me, making investments in Minnesota, making sure people's long-term economic health is what's in mind. And the third piece would be not all Democrats are a monolith. We don't act the same, walk the same, and think the same. And being a greater Minnesota Democrat, I can stand at any corner of my district and I can see farm fields. I can even stand in those random places in the middle of Mankato and see farm fields, which I always get a kick out of. And while there may not be as many farms in my district as others, Mankato is the home of the corn growers, the soybean growers, Green Seam, and other ag organizations, that it's really important that they also have a voice at the Capitol. So I'm going to be making sure that I continue working with them in the agriculture sector to make sure that they have a voice at the Capitol as well.
Thank you, Luke. Same question over to Bjorn.
Well, thank you everyone for being here this evening, and thank you to the moderators for putting on this forum. I'm State Representative Bjorn Olson. I represent District 22A, which is the largest majority of the land in Blue Earth County, but not the majority of the population. So this District 22A serves about everything south of the city of Mankato, going into Faribault County, going into Martin County, and into Watonwan County. So I'm very appreciative to have been invited to this forum here today. Now, I'm Bjorn Olson. Like I said, I'm a licensed social studies teacher. I'm a farmer. I farm south of Blue Earth, and my family's farmed for 120 years in Martin County as well. I work with my father in that. I'm a soldier. I'm a major in the United States Army Reserve currently. I'm a former small city mayor. I'm a father, and I'm a husband. So when you ask what my priorities are, I wear them on my sleeve. I'm a teacher, a farmer, a soldier, a former small city mayor, a father, and a husband. Those are my priorities. Now, when you talk about issues that we have in the state, you talk about any rural situation, or everyone around here is going to be talking about a couple different things. They're going to talk about childcare. They're going to talk about housing. But one of the biggest problems that we have in the state of Minnesota currently is we have a spending problem. Now, I serve on the tax committee, and in that tax committee, I was concerned over something that cost $54,000, and it was a waste of money. It was a waste of taxpayer dollars. It was a report that could have been done by a college student. And I brought that up. I said, why are we wasting money? Why are we wasting taxpayer dollars? And Representative Brand serves on the tax committee as well, and he will remember this day probably pretty well. Someone on the other side of the aisle looked at me and said, Bjorn, it's only $54,000. What are you talking about? And I said, only $54,000. In St. Paul, I regularly hear things like, it's only $54,000. It's only $2 million. Well, to someone like me, only $54,000 is a lot of money. And if we are not using it efficiently, and if we are wasting that money, which a vast majority of the currency that was spent the last 2 years was, we've got a problem. We need to reevaluate what our priorities are, and we need to focus our spending on things that are going to get the job done.
Thank you, Bjorn. Marissa.
Oh, press the button. There we go. You're good.
My name's Marisa Ullman. I am a farmer, I am a business owner, and we raise livestock. We have a feed mill. Recently, my husband and I opened our third business this last spring, a little reluctantly, but we are looking at opening our fourth business this coming next spring. And so the businesses that we run have to do with small farmers, small livestock producers, and the problems that come up with them. My education is political science, philosophy, and economics. I'm a fifth-generation farmer from Watonwan County. My mother still lives on the home place that my family settled in 1868. One of the reasons I'm running, and I don't end up talking very much about, is local government aid. And many of you might remember that local government aid was decoupled from inflation in 2003 by Governor Pawlenty. And so our local government aid has not kept up with inflation. And so we're seeing these small cities enter in 17% levies, 27% levies, 10% levies for my town of Madelia. Watonwan County just put in together a 5.5% levy, and they're also looking at a sales tax. And the cities and the counties will get the money that they need, but that's all coming from property tax payers. And so it's coming from business owners, and it's coming from farmers. And unless we add the inflation back into local government aid, the property owners and the business owners are going to continue to pay without having very much representation. I saw Madelia City Council pass the 10% property tax again this year after a 7-minute discussion. These things need to be added back into our local government aid formula. I'm also very interested in education. I think it's a shame that if you are sending your kids to school in Madelia, they're not having the same education opportunities as those that go to school in Chaska or Chanhassen. I believe that there needs to be more parity, and not just based on what our individual towns and communities can afford. Local government aid is really what makes the playing field even. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, everybody. We're going to start this next question with Jeff, and we're going to come this way and back around to Erica. So we're going to talk about the divisiveness in politics. So in hopefully 2 minutes, because there's quite a few of you tonight, we hear often that the current level of divisiveness and partisanship in the legislature seems to be getting worse and worse, not just along party lines, but there appears to be an ever-increasing tension between the Twin Cities Metro and Greater Minnesota. How do you view the state's current political climate, and how would you work to build consensus in order to get work done? Jeff, to you.
Thanks for asking this question. I was asked this question today at MSU Mankato by some of the teachers or professors that are up there as well. Yeah, I would say that there is a bit of extremism that's going on in politics right now. It's unfortunate, and it's been something that's been happening over maybe a generation or two. It's getting worse and worse. But one of the things that I like to focus on is modeling the behavior that I think a lot of people expect from their legislators. So in 2018, when I was knocking doors, people said, well, why can't you just work together? My campaign slogan is working better together. It's not just a slogan, it's my mantra. The organization, nonprofit, nonpartisan organization called Majority in the Middle actually has a report that comes out every year. They analyze every legislator and take a look at them and say, oh, okay. But at the end of the day, you can look at that report. It's publicly available, majorityinthemiddle.com, and you'll find the bipartisan report that they have. What you'll see in my specific instance is that it's very colorful. There's a lot of different colors associated with it. Why is that? Well, not only do I like colors, but also I try to embody or model the language that I think a lot of people expect from the district that I serve in. That's working together. I have signed on to Republican bills. I have advocated for those bills to be included in bonding bills and such. A good example of that is a memory care unit that needs public funding in the bonding bill in Slayton. They don't have a lot of elder care facilities in that region. You have to go to Marshall or New Ulm or Mankato to get that treatment, that kind of treatment that you need for an elderly patient. I advocated on behalf of that bill because I think it's important that we don't have winners and losers in that space when we're talking about our elderly in Minnesota. Another bill that I co-authored simply was if you litter on the ice in Minnesota when it's frozen, that's a $100 fine. And I think that that's something that transcends politics in a way. But one thing you'll know is that at the end of the day, working better together is something that I've embodied at the legislature over the years. I'm really proud to do so where I can. There are some examples of legislation that never really saw past the committee process because I don't think that it also fit the committee, or rather the district that I represent. And there were other opportunities for me to amend existing bills in the majority to better suit the needs of everybody in small business. A great example of that is paid family leave. There's a small business exclusion in there because I worked together with folks across the aisle to make sure that our smallest businesses aren't being unduly impacted by the idea that everybody deserves paid family leave. And so I think those are some examples. I could give you more, but
Thank you.
That's just who I am. That's how I operate.
Thank you. Dar, to you.
Okay, well, not being up there, I don't know the exact dynamics of how it works up there, but I mean, I've negotiated well over 1,000 real estate transactions, and trust me, there's been times when you have to negotiate and you have to work together. But I think if we all were to get in a room together and have conversations, I think we would find that we are more alike than we are apart. And sorry, Joe, but I think a lot of the media is what drives us apart. And unfortunately, that's what drives us apart. So I think also too, I think the caucuses. I really do. I think we have to be loyal to the caucuses, and unfortunately, sometimes that means that we're not loyal to our constituents. So, you guys know more how it is as far as working together, and I don't. But I do know that I have a very good. I feel I have a very good reputation, and I can reach down to people and talk to them and try to get to the root of what's going on. And work together. So I know that that's something that's been really hard the last few years for all of us to work together, but I think it can be done. We just have to realize that we all really ultimately have the same goal. Most of the time we have the same goal as far as helping our constituents. So.
Thank you. Luke?
I want to say, and maybe this isn't the best way to answer this question, but a conversation I actually had with Dar comes to mind, and I hope it's okay that I share this. But it was after the 2020 fair. It was after the 2022 election, and we talked on the phone. And one of the things that we were grateful to each other for is that we didn't have a smear campaign. As both of us as candidates, neither one of us was out there smearing the other person. And so that's where to start, right? And you want to talk about how do we move past divisive politics? It takes that individual level where the individual candidate needs to lead with their values. And it's one of the things that I am grateful to Dar for, is that neither one of us entered that ugly, gross space. And I just want to put that out there. But the other thing I want to say on this is how do we avoid that politics of divisiveness is there is a big difference between politics and religion, right? Religion, you have good versus evil, you're black or white, right? There is no middle ground, right? And when you have people starting to take politics and turn it into a religion where you're either for us or against us, well, no, that's a failure in leadership right there, right? Politics is about being able to see the other person and recognize their humanity and that you can have that disagreement, but that doesn't mean that they're an evil person, right? And being able to work through people with that. And not every legislator works with every legislator in committee, so I don't see Bjorn, but I get in a good-natured way, a lot of my work in the mental health space. I work hand in hand with the Republican lead of the committees that I'm on. And so when it comes time that these bills get moved on the House floor, we are both standing up in unison that we're presenting the same thing forward. So that bipartisanship does happen. I will push back a little bit on the whole media thing. Collectively, if you're I ask everybody here, if you're at a gas station and you see a headline that says legislature committee went as normal, everyone voted and got the job done, you'd be like, okay, cool story, I'm not gonna buy that newspaper. But if you see a headline that's like, legislators' hairs were caught on fire and they ran around and it was just this hot mess, who's gonna buy that paper? You know what I mean? More people, yeah, right? Like, I mean, people are gonna buy that paper. So is it, the news media in that case, or is it our collective buying habits? So I just want to be careful of that because there's so much attacks on the media that I think that the media does the best job that they can. Local media does the best job that they can. And while I'm not perfect as a politician, I don't hold that same standard to anyone in the media either.
Thank you. Bjorn.
Well, thanks so much for the question, and thanks to Representative Brand for bringing up that majority in the middle, because I really did a quick fact check. He is correct, but also I looked at myself and I'm like, hey, all right, not too bad. I actually am I was working with Jeff and Luke over the last couple sessions. We were talking about things mostly that pertain to either small city road funding, but also things that affected Mankato and the area surrounding it. So that's really where you talk about bipartisanship. It turns into more of a geographical, we work together because it benefits all of us. You know, I used to be a history teacher, so there was a saying during the Civil War that all roads lead to Gettysburg, right? Well, most every road in southern Minnesota leads to Mankato. And so even though I personally don't represent a single constituent in the city limits of Mankato, I represent individuals who are very closely bound to the economy and the success and the prosperity of Mankato. And so very similar to these two individuals here, we work hard along with the senator to make sure that Mankato is a prosperous place. Now, I've been around for just a couple years. I was elected in 2020, and I saw a vast difference in the culture in the state of Minnesota over the last 4 years. You know, 4 years ago, it was a split government, and so you saw a lot more individuals working together. You know, you saw individuals saying, hey, how do we do something that actually works? How do we do something that doesn't just push an ideology, doesn't just push my idea, but works for the majority of the state? How do we find Republicans and Democrats who are willing to work together to find a solution? That was 4 years ago. Now, 2 years ago, things changed. They no longer needed us. And so the conversations turned into not so much how do we make this a great place for the state, it turned more into a regional how do we help Mankato, how do we help southern Minnesota, how do we fight for the things that are priorities for no matter what. You ask these two guys, we have similar priorities in southern Minnesota. And that's the shift. That's how things changed. It changed from we don't need your votes, but let's work on southern Minnesota to 4 years ago where it was how do we make great work for everyone in Minnesota. So that's kind of the idea of how things have changed over the last 4 years, and I'm hoping that into the next session we get back to that, working together for the betterment of all Minnesotans.
Thank you. Marisa.
Well, I am actually
Why don't you press the button there? Yep.
I'm actually looking to represent a district that is 70% Republican. And so I have a little bit of a different experience maybe as running with a 30% minority. I've been active in politics since about 2006, and I've seen it change a lot. I'm used to being called a lot of names. I've been called a communist more often than I can even, which is kind of funny because we do own 3 businesses, and that would be actually the opposite of communism. But this year, I'm getting spit on. Grown adults at county fairs are spitting on me because of my incredibly strange policies about education, health care, child care. In this last 2 weeks, my heart is beating pretty fast when I say this. My hands are sweating. I've been getting personal threats. I've been getting threats to my personal safety, my dog safety, my property safety. And the one thing that these things have in common is that they're coming from people that I don't know, I haven't met, and they're also coming from Facebook friends of my opponent. In the Fairmont forum, we were asked to say something nice about the other party. Bjorn couldn't find a single thing to say nice about a Democrat. He did say that there was somebody named Larry Kraft that he did sometimes like to talk to. And so don't let this fool you. Look at that transcript, look at that video from Fairmont, and see the guy who says that there's nothing that he would change about the Republican Party and nothing that he could say positive about the Democrat Party. I think that our views are incredibly different. I would have voted for free school lunches. I would have voted for paid family leave. I would have voted for the PRO Act. And these are just three things that my opponent voted no on.
Thank you. Erica, to you.
So working together, it sounds like a wonderful idea as long as both parties are willing. How many of you guys remember what the session looked like at the end? A lot of chaos. It did not look like both parties were willing. Brand, Jeff, my opponent, you called me out and said that I would not have supported serving universal meals to students. As a former single mom, you are wrong. When I was raising my daughter, working around the clock, 2 jobs, you know what they told me? I did not qualify for reduced lunch. I didn't qualify for any grants of any kind because I made too much money. I don't care what the Republican caucus say about stuff like that. As a working parent, as a mother, as somebody who has a family, kids are always going to come first. So you're wrong about that when you said that, Jeff. I support universal meals to be served to all children.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next,
Dar starts now, and you're...
next question,
yeah.
yes. Budget taxation. The main task of the legislature in the 2025 session will be to pass the next state budget. In 2023, the legislature passed a biennial budget of $72 billion after a surplus of $17.5 billion. What will be your budget priorities for the next biennium?
Well, number one, stop the spending. There's been too much spending going on, and we need to figure out how to, we need to cut stuff out there, you guys. I mean, I would love to be able to pay for everything and do everything that anyone wants, any nonprofit, any organization and stuff, but we just can't do that. We can't do that on the backs of our taxpayers. So number one, I would try to find where the waste is, you know, and find out where we can cut some of that stuff. We don't want to have to raise taxes. I would like to reduce taxes for people because most of us are suffering. We all are suffering. The gas prices, the groceries, I mean, it's just ridiculous. So we need to really find a way to dig deep and try to work together to figure out how to make that budget work. The increase that they had last year, or last budget, was between 38 and 40%. That's unheard of. Look at Iowa. Iowa, I think since the governor, that she's been governor, I think it's only been like 2% each year since she's been governor. So we've got to stop the spending and we've got to figure out how to make it work.
Thank you. Same question to you, Luke.
So this last biennium was a product of COVID federal dollars that became available. We had a surplus that because of filibustering that happened in the previous biennium that left dollars to get spent, which is why we hadn't the $18 billion surplus to spend. Now, some of those dollars we invested in things like, again, the Mankato's wastewater treatment facility, but we did a lot of different things. We spent $1 billion in housing, the largest investment in housing in our state's history. We expanded mental health access. We had food programs, but some of that is taking that large chunk of money, and whether it was $10 million for one program, well, it's going to be a 10-year program at $1 million a piece, or pick a program. And so that budget, that $72 billion budget that was referenced, is naturally just going to get smaller and smaller and smaller as those dollars get spent over the next decade. So it's already going to become smaller. The budget it just is. But when it comes to this next year, we will wait until the February forecast. We'll get a November forecast kind of setting the stage of what to expect for this next legislative year. But really then it's going to be the February forecast that will inform the legislature of how do we look financially. Do we have a surplus? How big is that surplus, and what do we want to do with it? And that's when we'll be making a lot of those decisions. I can say that just like I have led for 4 years, as much as we can invest in the long term in Minnesota, I'm going to advocate for those investments. Kids are one of the best long-term investments that we can make as Minnesotans. At least that's what I believe. And so whether that's K-12 education, whether that's in childcare, I'm going to continue to advocate that we invest in Minnesota because I believe in the long term that's where it's going to pay off the most. What I've seen from the other side of the aisle sometimes is that they want to do massive tax cuts. Well, when you get into those details, who benefits the most from some of these tax cuts? Well, we've seen from some proposals, like when there was talk about the unemployment trust fund, it's not the average small town businesses that benefit the most, right? Even though that might be the talking point. It's the millionaires and billionaires, it's the Targets, the Amazons, the Walmarts that benefited the most from that kind of legislation, which is why I don't support that type, because I don't think that we need to give state taxpayer dollars to multinational, multi-billion-dollar companies. I do support investments in small businesses, but again, it has to be about Minnesotans, and that's going to be like my budget priority.
Thank you, Luke. Bjorn, budget priorities.
Thank you so much for the question. In 1991, the state of Minnesota ran off of $15 billion. So you fast forward from 1991, $15 billion funded the government. 30 years later, 2021, we ran off of 53. And then you fast forward just 2 years after that, and they funded the government at $72 billion. That is an untenable rate of increase. It's untenable. No matter which economic individual you talk about, it's an untenable growth. Something has to change. And they talk about, oh, you know, if you're going to cut spending, then you got to take it from somewhere. Well, how about we take it from the fraud, the waste, and the abuse that's going on in the state? It's running rampant. We wasted $500 million feeding fraud. We're wasting $730 million on a palace for politicians. And I was in that committee room asking that question. I said, how much would it cost to just fix everything that's broken? Because I'll admit, the state office building's not the greatest building. It's really old and needs repair. But I asked the question, I said, how much would it cost to just fix everything that's broken? And they said about $200 million. And instead they decided to spend another $500 million making a palace instead of just fixing what was broken. Those are the issues. You want to talk about childcare. Over the last couple of years, the Office of Legislative Auditors said that there's been $100 million worth of fraudulent claims in the child care assistance payment program. That's the problem, and that's where we can cut the spending. We don't have to do any of that. Just look at it and say, hey, let's make some wise decisions. Let's not spend $53,000 on a report that tells us nothing. Let's not waste $2 million to create another bureaucratic program to do the job of a program that isn't doing its job. That was literally an argument that was made. We should spend $2 million to create a program to do the job of another program. These are the ideas and the solutions that only government has, creating a $2 million program. That's what we need to stop, and that's where you cut the fraud, the waste, and the abuse in this state.
Thank you, Bjorn. Marisa.
I agree that there's probably some overspending going on. I agree that there is probably some cutbacks that could be made. But I am looking at communities whose wastewater treatment plants are 50 to 70 years old. These communities don't have enough money to pay for that on their own. One of the reasons I first decided to run, I was working at the post office. I was a rural delivery driver. And there were a couple of people from the city council in Louisville who said that my opponent told them that it would be a good idea if they hired a lobbyist to help them with their wastewater treatment plant. Jim Poppy? Yeah. Who are they going to lobby? He's their advocate. Who do they go to? Who do they find out how to fix this situation of a town with only 350 people and no grocery store and no gas station, whose wastewater treatment plant is failing on them? And based on the last bonding bill, that's happening to hundreds and hundreds of communities across our state. Maybe there was a little bit of fraud in the child care, but Greater Minnesota needs 40,000 places for kids. Where does that money come from? My opponent again voted against 3 different solutions to child care. One of them was a child care grant where it would help pay for a building so that a business owner didn't have to have that on top of starting a new business. There are still things that we need to fix in our communities. And yes, we probably do need to cut some spending and some waste, but it's not like Democrats are up there having some sort of kegger that you weren't invited to. There are needs in this community, and we need to address them.
Thank you.
I'd like to rebuttal that, please, Andy.
We'll come
if
back
you-
around to you, so save that for a little bit later. Thank you. Erica, to you.
So the amount of fraud that we have seen in the last 2 years has been horrendous. The wasteful spending, I think there's a way we can figure out how to cut out some of this wasteful spending. I know my opponent voted for a palace of politicians. Just the other morning, I was working my 5 a.m. shift. I had an older lady come in, and she asked me, "Hey, Erica, what does a loaf of bread cost at your store?" I said, "It's $3.89 non-tax, ma'am." She said, "Okay." She went and grabbed a loaf of bread. She came back to my counter. She said, "I can afford that today." Do you want to tell her? You want to tell that lady who's struggling to buy groceries that you voted for the politician palace so you had a nice, cozy desk to work at? Because I know I could not look her in the eye and tell her that. She asked me the price of orange juice. I said, "You know, we have a variety of sizes. You need to tell me what size." And she goes, "You know, I probably can't afford that today. But thank you, Erica. Thank you for all that you're doing and remembering us people here." So I think there's a way we can cut back the fraud, the wasteful spending. It's just really out of hand. We got to bring back some accountability and balance back to the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Jeff, to you.
Well, I want to go back to what my why. We need to fully fund our schools, and so we need to get to an appropriate level for funding. There are kids that are losing out on school education because they have an achievement gap that we have to address. We have class sizes that are way too big. Mankato, for instance, has a rather large school class size per average student. St. Peter the same way, Nicollet also. We need to start looking at smaller class sizes. I know our school boards would be lovely if they could get the resources to reduce class sizes. Our healthcare system is broken. Like I said, we're just admiring the problem, but we have some opportunities to provide some additional solutions next year, so I'm looking forward to that. And the last thing is we still need to work out how are we going to work out our workforce issues. We have the lowest unemployment rate in the entire nation, which means we still need childcare, we still need housing, we still need to get these workers to come here and live here. And, you know, I think we can cut our way out of an issue, or we can talk about balancing our budget on new expenditures, new opportunities for the state. But at the end of the day, we have a lot of problems that we have to address. And I'm really willing to roll up the sleeves and get this stuff accomplished. Bonding bill is really important, but unfortunately we weren't able to get a bonding bill done. And that I think goes back to what we need to start having a conversation about some reforms on the House floor, time limits. So we're not talking about cheeseburgers for 13 hours. We're actually getting the work of the people done in a timely and efficient fashion. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, the bonding bill is one of those things where we can provide that extra layer of civility and working across the aisle, because I think that it's important that we have Republican votes too. We had some real opportunities. Lafayette, they need some water treatment. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get it this year. Eagle Lake needs water treatment. Unfortunately, they're not able to get it this year. We have real world issues, and every year we wait, those real world issues double in cost. So we can talk about how we spend money and that sort of thing. Part of fiscal responsibility is actually getting the bonding bill done.
Thank you. All right.
Thank
Luke,
you, Andy. Is this my chance?
You're going to get on the next question right here. So Luke's going to go first, then you'll get to chat and get your piece in that. So Luke, you got the next question here, and then we're going to go this way, and we'll come back around to Erica and finish with Dar. And this question is about the business climate. Do you think it is important to have a competitive business climate, and how can we improve our competitiveness to make sure that Minnesota's private sector businesses can start and grow in our state? Luke, to you, and then Bjorn.
I think that working in partnership between small businesses and the government is incredibly important. I think that small businesses are the backbone of our economy. I think that taking care of workers supports small businesses. I think that when we lead with our values, which is supporting the average everyday Minnesotan, it keeps more money in their pocket, whether it is through child care tax credits or any of the other tax cuts that we put in this last biennium. It keeps more money in the average person's pockets. And what do they do when there's more money in their pockets? They'll go out and spend them, which then in turn gets more money into the local economies. And it's a partnership in that regard. And we can do that too, and there's these claims of fraud and waste and abuse, and and the Feeding Our Futures is getting brought up here tonight too. But we caught that. We're prosecuting that, and we're going after getting those dollars back. That's literally government working how it should, right? Because going after the people. I think the first person was just sentenced today for I don't know, 12 years, however many years in prison that they're going to serve. So that's holding people accountable. So the boogie words of fraud, waste, and abuse. Yeah, you know what? If you ask any Democrat, they're going to say they care about fraud, waste, and abuse too. Right? Just as much as every Republican might say it as well. It's just we're not going to use it as a boogeyman, I guess, in the same way. So the good programs that are working, let's build on those and just hold the bad actors accountable.
Thank you. Bjorn, to you, competitive business climate.
Sure, thank you so much. And, holding the bad actors accountable costs more taxpayer dollars than just not allowing the bad actors to occur. Going back to my opponent's previous claim there, first of all, the comment was maybe there was a little bit of fraud in the child care assistance payment program. $100 million is not a little bit of fraud. $100 million is in no way, shape, or form a little bit of fraud. That's the problem right there. And to address the issue of this lobbyist, you can name drop all day long. Why would I, if I support a small city hiring a lobbyist and wasting taxpayer dollars, which my job is to lobby for them, why would I tell the city of Fairmont to stop paying $25,000 worth of even my property tax on a lobbyist? Why would I tell Martin County that they need to stop hiring a lobbyist because that's my property tax money? Maybe it's because I don't live in Watonwan County that I'm okay with their property tax dollars being wasted on a lobbyist. You can name drop all day long, but the theme is wrong. It's absolutely fallacy. When you talk about business climate, they make this claim that we want Minnesota to be the best place to be a worker in the entire country. We want this place to be the best place to be a worker in the country. Now, you can argue all day long about which came first, the chicken or the egg, but I can promise you that if you don't have businesses because you have abused them so much for so long, it doesn't matter. You won't have workers. So it doesn't matter if the chicken came first or the egg came first. If you abuse business continually like we have in this state, you will not have them. And if you don't have them, you don't have good workers.
Thank you. Marisa.
I did not know what the amount of fraud was in child care, but I think the fact that, that Bjorn did know means that it had been sought out. It had been caught, right? No. Okay. So I opened my first business in 2011, and the business climate has changed quite a bit. And let me tell you, these last 2 years it has gotten a lot easier. Minnesotans had a net gain of over 3,000 businesses in the last 2 years. A net gain. We see that businesses start up, go back. If you don't have a good business plan, if you don't have a good relationship with your bank, if you don't have a good idea, if you don't have a good product, yeah, your business is probably going to fail. But this is the best business climate that we have had in 14 years. And you can see that with the net business gains of over 3,000 in the last 2 years. These are optimistic people. These are people with hope and a plan, and they know that their government is going to be stable. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric, it's you.
Optimistic business owners, well, the reality is what I've talked to in the local business owners, let's start with making Minnesota affordable again first. I know when my opponent voted against regulation on small business, they've become unsustainable. I talked to a local healthcare owner whose janitor has to take extra training classes to de-escalate a patient. He's never going to use that. So the owner said, I have to pay for him to take the time off, pay for the extra training for something he's never going to use. Medical staff is going to deal with the patient. The janitor's never going to have to deal with the patient. Another local business owner is a farmer that I talked to who has regulations on how to process his pork. He had to move his entire business to a different state because how my opponent voted against the regulations that were already set in place. Business owners that I've talked to are extremely frustrated with this earn sick and save time off because we rely on part-time help. Business owners that I've talked to are barely recovering from COVID, and now we have staffing issues. Optimistic is not what I see. What I'm hearing at the doors at my store, when I'm talking to my neighbors and my friends, everybody's in survival mode right now. Everybody's trying to survive to the next day. I recently talked to a mother who had to decide which kid she was going to buy a backpack for when school started. She had 2 boys. She picked one boy, and she had to tell the other one no. Optimistic is not what I'm seeing or hearing. I'm hearing the complete opposite. It's surviving. I'm just trying to survive right now. That's what I'm hearing, and that's what I'm seeing.
Thank you. Jeff, to you.
Minnesota has a unique reputation of being a place for people that are entrepreneurs to start new businesses. We have Fortune 500 companies that started in people's garages here in the state of Minnesota. And so we want to make sure that we have that competitive advantage of creating more entrepreneurs. I think part of the challenge is that a lot of people feel like they can't take that next leap because their health insurance and some of the other things that they have for benefits is tied to their employment at a particular job. And so I think what we're doing is we're losing the opportunity for more competitiveness, more entrepreneurship in our state. That's something we can address. Part of the conversation that you asked about was the competitiveness. And I think it's really challenging when you can go to Cub West and you can, it's not their fault, but 11 companies, 11 corporations, 11 national, multinational corporations own everything that you can buy in a grocery store. And I think that we need to, it's not their fault, it's not the grocery store's fault, it's the government's lack of oversight when it comes to antitrust laws. And I really think as a state level, we also have the opportunity to create new systems for selling locally products that can be grown, but also to rein in that anti-competitive nature that we have with monopolies in our state. You know, I think about these organic farmers that we have in our district, and it's really hard for them to make a profit. And we can be creating local systems where people raise that food. We have CSAs, we have organic growers in our, and that support farmers markets, but they can't make enough to make it work. And that used to be what we did in this state. But unfortunately, the competitive nature is pretty much gone, and it's really hard for a local producer to compete with these large multinational corporations. We tried to invest in local meat processors so that local folks can create and harvest their meat and process it locally. And we're really hopeful that we can get some butcher shops back into the communities across our state. That's one opportunity. But I think, you know, you look at small business owners, again, I am one. I've been doing this for 13 years now. And I would say that we have to provide more opportunities for people to take that leap, to say, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to compete against those giants of industry. And I think that that's something that our Minnesota values are in line with, and something that I really hope that we can decouple workforce and insurance, health insurance specifically, from taking that next leap.
Thank you. Dar, to you, final word on business climate.
I mean, I'd like to see that report because I feel that a lot of business owners are leaving the state. If you've ever owned a business, I mean, you know that most of us are the last ones to get paid. So it's tough right now. It's been tough. Real estate has been great for the last few years. COVID didn't affect that business, but I know that the restaurants, the bars, a lot of those other businesses, every day you look on Facebook and they're having to shut down for a day because they don't have enough employees. It's just, and plus another thing too, commercial real estate taxes. Mine went up just for my small little 1,500 square foot office space. My office condo went up 176% this year. I mean, that's unsustainable. I mean, we just need to, regulations. There's so many regulations on business owners. So I really don't see that a lot of business owners are wanting to start a business in this state. I see a lot of them leaving.
Thank you.
Okay, we're at the next question. It's on housing, and we start with Bjorn. Housing continues to be a major concern in our region. A shortage of housing appears to be a bipartisan issue. How would you help increase the supply of affordable housing?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So it's very interesting. There was a report that was recently done, and it showed that if you build a house in Wisconsin, just on the other side of the river, that house will cost you $50,000 less than if you built it in Minnesota. So the question is, what does Wisconsin have that Minnesota doesn't? And I'll tell you one thing, it's not a smaller minimum wage. They have a slightly smaller minimum wage currently, but that's not $50,000 in difference. Where is this coming from? And we've realized through a lot of these studyings, Housing First came up with a study, and they said there's too much red tape on the creation of a house. If you are a developer and you have the opportunity to make money building a house without going through all the rigmarole and jumping through the hoops in a different state, you might think about developing there. And as a result, $50,000, here we go, $54,000, $50,000, that's a lot of money. And it's boxing young people, young families, just trying to start out with their first home, it's boxing them out. And I can tell you one thing that won't solve the issue. What won't solve the issue is having the government come in and pay a portion of your house for you. Because anytime the government gets involved in something, costs go up. They never go down. I have yet to see a situation in which when the government threw money at it, it fixed the problem and it brought the cost down. So that's not the answer. The answer is cutting red tape, decreasing the regulations, still creating wonderfully safe houses in the state of Minnesota, but doing it affordably. That's the answer.
Thank you, Bjorn. Marisa.
Well, I think we need to start with some of the houses that we have that have been abandoned in our small towns especially. I know that there's several houses in Medelia that are currently unlivable, but maybe $50,000 to $70,000 could get them up. If there were some sorts of deals that the city could help with that kind of thing, give you a property tax abatement, maybe start a city grant, look into economic development for these places, maybe work in cooperation with a few companies that need to have places for their workers to live. I think that's an excellent start. Medelia started kind of a strange subdivision out in the middle of a cornfield, and they've had some mixed results with that. But let's face it, there's not a whole lot of farmers who are willing to give up their land. And so what we really need to do is focus on the housing that we do have that does not take a $200,000 input of cash, that maybe takes $30,000, $50,000, $70,000, and get these people a decent place to live.
Thank you, Marisa. Question over to you, Erica. Housing.
Affordable housing, that sounds like a nice idea, but right now I just don't see it as being the truth. I was a single parent raising my daughter. A house was a dream, was something that I've dreamt about when my daughter was little. I worked 2 jobs. I worked 60, 70 hours at one job. The only way I was fortunately able to buy a house, I bought a house through the Habitat for Humanity program, which I think is a wonderful program. With along that, I had to commit to a year of classes. I had to commit of 400 plus community hour service while all working 2 jobs and putting myself through school at the time that my house was being built. When I was finally able to move into my house, it took 3 years to build. Normally it takes 1 year, but because of COVID, my house took 3 years. When I was able to buy my house, it was supposed to be considered affordable. Like the 3rd year that I lived in my house, my mortgage, my taxes, my property taxes went up so much that I had to get a second job. So I was already working 50, 60 hours a week at my one job, and then I had to work at another place at nights for a few nights a week just to make ends meet. That doesn't sound like affordable housing to me. I couldn't imagine being a single parent in today's economy. I know my opponent's going to tell you that he stuck $1 billion into affordable housing. I don't see it. He had 2 years to do something about affordable housing. I just don't see it. When I'm talking to families at the store, they're telling me that they're barely making ends meet with bills, health care, with car payments. Nothing seems affordable right now. I just don't see it.
Thank you, Erica. Jeff.
So we're fortunate to have a lot of housing advocates in Greater Mankato, St. Peter, all over the region. And it's really remarkable. In years past, we specifically spent between $10 and $30 million for every 2 years on housing. And when you think about one of the most compassionate things you can do for the people that you serve at the legislature, it's making sure that they have a place to call home. Otherwise, not much else is going right, especially if you're a kid bouncing around from house to house and couch to couch. It's really hard for them to focus on their schoolwork. And in years past, in talking to these housing advocates that we have, they've always had to compete against housing advocates in Duluth, or St. Cloud, or Moorhead, or Rochester, you name it. So we were never adequately funding the needs across the entire state. We were picking winners and losers. through an arbitrary process where you had to provide an application for a grant. And maybe they won, maybe they lost. But, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, the housing is really important. I'm really happy that we did spend $1 billion on housing. That was one-time money that we spent as part of the surplus. So when anybody asks, where did the surplus go? $1 billion went to our neighbors in need of housing. Now that also provided some incentives for people who are renting that could not afford their rent, and that includes the elderly. That include folks that were maybe made a bad decision in life. Does that mean they have to be homeless? Maybe they're a veteran. Does that mean they have to be homeless? Dealing with things like PTSD? When we don't spend the money adequately, when we don't lead with our values, we continue to pick winners and losers. And with housing in particular, what we're doing now is we're taking more people off the streets and giving them stability. That stability provides them an opportunity to get a job because they have an address to put on their resume. That gives them the future that they might need. And I hope that we never go back to these days where we're spending $10 to $30 million per biennium, that's every 2 years, to deal with this housing issue. You know, I think that we need to continue to work on a budget. That's our moral obligations to our communities. And again, I'm going to continue to listen to our housing advocates because they do know what's on the boots on the ground. They do know what's going on, and they do know how they can help if they have just a little bit more money.
Thank you, Jeff. Dar.
Like Bjorn said, a lot of the cost of building a house is a lot of regulations that could be, a lot of things could be taken out. There's too much regulations on building homes. When I first started selling real estate 27 years ago, there was probably 4 times the amount of builders that were building homes, and it was abundant. And also, one of the things that's happening now too is the interest rates are so high that people aren't wanting to buy a house, and usually when the interest rates go up, the cost of the homes are usually supposed to go down, but they haven't seemed to gone down that much. So one of the things that's been explored is, we've been hearing a little bit more about, is like a land trust. I don't know if that would possibly help anything, where basically the cost of the home and the land was separated, and the land would have a lease on it for like a 99-year lease, and then the person would really be only buying the home, so that would reduce the cost of the house. Because right now, like I said, when I first moved to town, the lot I built on was $15,000. I've seen lots, $199,000 in this town, in Mankato. So if you were to, not that someone's going to do that, someone's not going to need that needs affordable housing, but if you get the average person that can just take off the cost of the land, that would make a big difference too. So that's an option, something to, but it's you know, I think a lot of it's a regulation on the builders. The builders want to build homes, but with the cost of them, and it just eliminates them being able to build them as many as they'd like to.
Thanks, Dar. And Luke, last word to you on housing.
I'm going to kind of talk quick because there's a lot of different points that I want to hit. Is building new housing, both rentals and single-family homes, part of it? Absolutely. I carried legislation that would help cities build the infrastructure, 2 plots of land for developers to be able to come in and build those spaces. One of those, if you build it, they will come. And it has worked. But it's more than just that. It gets complicated, right? Because we have to look at renters, we have to look at tenants. And we updated the Tenant Bill of Rights in 2023. One of the things that we did was saying that if someone, let's say someone who's 70, enters a lease and they fall and they break a hip and they require a higher level of care, they have to go to a nursing home. We changed the law saying that where they lived, they have to be let out of that lease, so they're not in a position where they both have to pay their rent and pay the nursing home or whatever care facility that they are at. We changed the law. That wasn't the case before that. What I did after the 2023 session is I came to Mankato, and there's a law firm in town hosting a forum to all of the landlords in the city. And in this room, probably 200 to 300 people, landlords, were in this room together. And this law firm they looked at everybody and they said, well, the legislature, they changed the law, so you have to let them out of their lease if they have to go to this care facility. But, and they were like, but, and I'm like, this is where I got really frustrated. They said, if there's 2 people on the lease, let's say a married couple, and one of them hurts themselves and has to go to that care facility, you don't actually have to let them out of the lease. And the next words out of their mouth, and I kid you not, I'm not making this up, and this is from the lawyers in the room, You might bankrupt them and ruin them financially, but you don't actually have to let them out of the lease. And I was pissed. So this last year, I went back to the legislature advocating for renters again, and we changed the law saying that you have to break the entire lease. You can't bankrupt one person just because their spouse or partner had something happen to them. And that's some of the practices that we see across the state, that we have to defend renters. Different renters, different landlords might say, we'll give you a 2-week notice on an eviction. Some might say 3 weeks. Some might say a week. Some landlords, 0 days. They show up, you're evicted. And we put in the Bill of Rights that there has to be a timeline. You have to give people not only a notice, but you have to give them a timeline that says you have this many days, and if they make a payment in that time, that they are able to make payments. But additionally, on that same notice, they have to provide resources that are available to tenants to say you can get help for rental help here, you can get assistance here. That's part of what we are doing, looking out for tenants. At the same meeting where these lawyers were presenting to landlords, they made sure to point out, yeah, but the legislature didn't say how big that font had to be. And I'm like, are you just looking for any way possible to screw over tenants? What the hell? So as a legislator, we have to be looking out for the, pardon my language, sorry. We have to be looking out for the average person. And the other thing that we have to also be willing to look at is private equity firms across the nation are coming in and buying up rentals, right? If you have 2 houses that are up for rent, let's say I'm just gonna make up numbers, $1,000 a piece, what do we see? What is happening already? Private equity firms buy both houses, only rent one for $2,000. Because it's cheaper, they make more money by not renting that other house because they double the price of the other one. That is already happening. Up in the Twin Cities, I've heard numbers between 30 to 40% of rentals are intentionally left empty to drive those prices up.
Thank you. All right. We're having so much fun. We're going to try and fit in one more question before we get to the final word. So we're going to ask a question that is a question I've asked at every single forum so far this election cycle, and it's about childcare. Over the past several years, there has been a growing concern about childcare in Greater Minnesota specifically. Cost and access are the 2 major problems for families, while providers struggle to maintain a sustainable business model. How would you work to address childcare specifically in Greater Minnesota? Marisa, we'll start with you and we'll come around.
Well, before I met my now husband, I was a divorced single mother for 12 years. And like Erica, I was also working full-time. Actually, when what led up to the divorce was both my husband and I were working 2 jobs and paying for childcare. That didn't go real well for a marriage. But once we were divorced, I was a single parent for 12 years. And unless you have a good place to have your children, you are not going to be very good at work. But the 7 to 5 or the 7 to 6 model does not work for everyone. And so if you are in a position where you are needing to take a client out for supper, you can't do it because your daycare closes at 6. If you're supposed to take a client out golfing on Saturday morning, you better have a darn good kid that you can call to babysit. And then on top of that, 25 years ago, I was paying $600 a month. So there are a lot of issues with child care. But one problem that I was not dealing with in California was availability. That's the main problem here. Yes, it's expensive. It will always be expensive. It's extraordinarily expensive to place your child into safe, capable, responsible hands. But the legislature did come up with 3 options to try to help this situation. Like I said before, there are 40,000 child care placements needed in Greater Minnesota. And I have to say again that my opponent voted against all 3.
Thank you. Erica, to you on childcare.
Childcare, yes. So childcare, as we all know, if anybody who has a child in childcare, is very, very expensive. So much so that mothers who are expanding their families are forced to stay home because they said, if I work, it's all going to go to child care anyway. What is the point of me working if I'm going to just hand it over to somebody else? Child care tax is what my opponent's going to bring up. It's not available to everybody. It's available to certain brackets. I think that if elected, I would like to work together and make that available for everybody who's struggling to pay childcare. I think that's one of the things that we do need to compromise on, is that.
Thank you. Jeff, to you.
Childcare is a big issue for
Why don't you press the button for me? Thank you.
There we go. Green light, go. Childcare is a big issue. It's really important, especially in greater Minnesota. We have 1,000 slots that we still need to fill here in the greater Mankato area. That's not new. That's something when I ran for city council back in 2012 in the city of St. Peter. You know, when we had our first child, we never had childcare. When we had our second child, we never had childcare. We just made it work. There was a long list of people in line before us. We never could quite get through that cycle to get us into childcare, so we could continue. That's part of the reason why we had a small business for so long, is because we could also bring the kids with us in a lot of projects. You know, I think at the end of the day, childcare is one of those things that we're always chasing at the legislature. Marisa brought up refurbishing old buildings, churches, in the community for childcare. That was the bill I carried, not just this year, but last year, and the year before that as well. We were able to get included in the bonding bill in 2020. Unfortunately, no money with it, but we got the language with it. I worked with the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, of which Mankato, North Mankato, and St. Peter are proud members. And when I was able to get the money in 2023, I was really happy to do so. $900,000. We spent $13 million on child care through economic development, workforce development, and through the bonding bill. Does that mean we've created a silver bullet? No, absolutely not. Child care is one of those things that we're going to continue to have to support in greater Minnesota, just like housing, just like making sure that we have that workforce put together. But we're not going to solve the problem of our low unemployment rates if we're not able to attract families to our communities. That is one of the #1 ways that we can attract families to our communities. And so, you know, I think at the end of the day, we have some unique opportunities. We're looking at what other states are doing. I plan to introduce some legislation in the next biennium to continue moving greater Minnesota in particular forward so we can make things more affordable. By the way, one of the ways that we can make life more affordable in Minnesota is making childcare something that's accessible in all of our communities, and we could also subsidize some of that stuff as well.
Thank you. Dar, to you.
Well, this has been a problem forever, ever since women started going to work. I think it's been pretty hard to pay for daycare. I don't have any kids, and we never not planned on having kids. It just happened. But if if we would have had kids, my husband would have stayed home. So, except for they'd probably kill him. But no, I heard last night that at the CD1 forum they were talking about. Maybe taking use of some of these older buildings and trying to have like a little co-op where you share spaces. When I did that, I built a very expensive office building in 2008, and we all know what happened in 2009. So I had about 10, I was the first shared spaces in Mankato. I had about 10 businesses renting from me and my office staff helped them. So something like that. We have to think outside the box. I'm gonna go back to regulations again. There's a lot of people who would like to start a daycare. I loved it when my niece, I have 2 nieces only on my side. I've got 50 or so on the other side, but they loved the going to Mary, and they loved the going to someone's house. So there's a lot of women that would probably like to, or even men, not discriminating, that would probably like to go back to having, you've got kids and you would like to have a daycare in your own home. Why can't we go back to that? And a lot of it boils down to there's too many regulations. I think I read something that you had to sanitize the toys. I'm sorry, kids actually need dirt. They need to play in the dirt and be exposed to stuff. So that stuff isn't helping the kids where they think it is. So, but we need to work outside the box. I really feel our community is a great community. I think if we were to sit down and talk to some of the business leaders and parents and stuff, we would probably be able to come up with some solutions.
Thank you. Luke, to you.
I can't help but think the very first time that I took my kid and left her in the care of someone else. As a brand new dad, I had a hard time walking back to my car. I'm like, how do I know she's gonna be safe? Am I making the right call? What do I do? I'm trying to figure out how to be a parent, and then at the same time, I'm like, am I making the right decision? Is my kid the most important, tiny little person in the world to me gonna be safe? And it was scary, and I lucked out. I had a wonderful daycare provider that was huge in my kid's life when they were that age. And so when we talk about regulation, is there a way to decrease regulation? Let's have that conversation, but what? Right? Because the regulations that are in place are there because we want to protect our kids, protect what is the most important person in their parents' eyes. And so, cool, if there's something we can do, point it out. Right? Just pointing out to a nebulous regulation, okay, but let's get more specific if there's actually an idea there. Because I know that I care a great deal about my kids' safety. But the other two things I want to talk about real quick is the child care tax credit. That's something that we did this year, right? Because we know the cost of child care, and so we increased the child care tax credit and to help kind of defray some of those costs. We've also, this group up here today has also been talking about the grant program going to child care providers. Before the 2023 session, I met with about 20 different area child care providers. You know what their number one ask was for that grant program? Why? Because they needed it just to keep the workers that they had there, because they kept having to reduce capacity because workers could make more money working at Quick Trip than in a child care. And that's not saying anything bad about Quick Trip. I'm not like, but that's why they wanted that grant program there. And I've talked with them since then, and they said that they were able to just at a minimum keep the workers there because that grant program provided more money for them so they could pay their workers more. And so when I hear something said up here today of how do you prevent fraud, you just don't have the program, tell that to the child care providers that were able to keep the people working in Mankato that they needed that money for it, because they would say that without that money, they wouldn't be here.
Thank you. Bjorn, final word on childcare.
Hey, thank you for the question. When you talk about child care, I was speaking with a woman just a couple weeks ago, and she said, Bjorn, I was thinking about opening this in-home child daycare center, and then I realized that the stack of paperwork that I would have to fill out and perform, at the end of the day, it wasn't worth it. Now, this is a woman who has 5 children of herself. She's a seasoned veteran when it comes to caring for children, but she said it's too hard. The state has made it too difficult for her to open the business. She's better off just taking care of her 5 kids at home on her own and forgetting about helping other people and their children. Now, that's a problem. You talk about all this money that we're throwing at childcare. Well, we've seen over 700 in-home daycares close over the last few years. So that has to throw some red flags in the air if you are truly concerned about fixing the child care crisis in the state of Minnesota. More than 700 in-home daycares have closed. The question is why? It's not because these people have been shut down due to, abusing children. It's because it's too hard to do the job and it's not worth it any longer. Now, we want to talk about that child care assistance payment program again that had $100 million worth of fraud. Now, it's a large program. $100 million was the number that the Office of the Legislative Auditor came up with as the fraudulent number, which could be tightened up, or no one's talking about eliminating it. People are talking about tightening it up, making sure that that kind of fraud's not occurring. But the interesting portion of that program is that if you look at the top 100 child care providers who are receiving money from that program, the top 100, 98 of them are from the metro. 98. Where's the assistance to the people in southern Minnesota? Where is that? Because it's not in that program. 98 out of 100 come from the metro.
Very good. We're going to wrap with our final question here from Mr. Spear, and we'll start with Erica, and we'll come around. We'll end with you, Marisa.
Okay, as we close, we want to give each of you a chance to make your case to voters by answering one simple question. Why should voters vote for you?
I want voters who should vote for me. Well, again, my name is Erica Schwartz. I'm a working mom working hard to make changes. I partner with my husband in a small business. We run and operate our convenience store called the Nicollet Mart. The one thing that I see, like I've said before, is affordability. People are struggling every day just to get the bare essentials. I had a young college kid come in recently and buy $8 worth of gas. He paid me all in dimes. I recently talked to a father who came in, and he was like, Erica, I'm so glad it was you here working on the counter. I'm like, hey, what's going on? He goes, I found an old gift card here to the gas station. Will you honor it? I'm like, yeah, sure, of course I can. There he goes, I'm like, it's $10. What did you need to get? I'll go ahead, that's fine. He goes, I need gas and I have no money. This is all I have. I see that every day at the store when I'm talking to people. People are so concerned if they're gonna be able to afford their groceries, the next gas, the next tank of gas. That's what I see. I see that it's time for a change. Change is necessary, but I know it's not going to be easy. So I hope to gain your support. Now that we're about 20 days away, I hope I can gain your support. I think it's time to make a change. Again, like I said, I know it's not going to be easy, but I also think it's necessary. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Erica. Jeff?
Green light, go. I'm Jeff Brand, and I'm asking for your vote on or before November 5th. I think it's really important that people get out and vote and exercise their ability to vote. I'm really proud of the record that I have at the legislature in passing 40 different laws in 2 terms. I think it's really important because I know that I've impacted people's lives for the better in this district. I have represented everybody in the district. One of the things that you've seen and heard tonight was that my opponent spoke a lot about me when she's talking about her vision for the future, only maybe not so much about the vision for the future. You know, it kind of feels like I'm watching a YouTube ad from one of those shadowy organizations about Big Bad Jeff Brand. At the end of the day, I represent everybody in the district. I work across the aisle, and I also listen to my constituents, every last one of them. I have never taken the time to disparage a class of constituents or a group of constituents, Democrats, for instance, is one case. But what I would say is this. With me, you know what you're going to get. I believe in stability in government. I believe in working across the aisle. I have 2 terms of experience running as a city council member and now 2 terms as a state legislator. I listen with 2 ears, I talk with 1 mouth, and I lead where I need to lead, where something's not getting done. In the last 2 years, I was able to lead on the strongest non-essential use ban of PFAS, forever chemicals, in the entire world. There are other states that are asking me for advice. There are other countries that are asking me for advice on what we did in Minnesota and how they could do it in other states and other countries. That's the kind of leadership you get with Jeff Brand. And again, I'm asking for your vote on or before November 5th.
Thanks, Jeff. Dar?
I needed to put mine on paper, so sorry about that. I'm running for the Minnesota House of Representatives because I believe our state is at a critical juncture and it's time for change in leadership. With over 27 years of experience as a successful business owner and real estate agent, I bring a wealth of negotiating skills and commitment to common sense governance. It's clear that our state needs leadership that prioritizes accountability and practical solutions. I am dedicated to restoring conservative values that will guide us towards a brighter future for all Minnesotans. My priorities include cutting taxes to ensure you can keep more of your hard-earned money, ending the tax on Social Security for our seniors, and supporting our law enforcement officers who work tirelessly to keep our communities safe. Additionally, I'm committed to rooting out waste and fraud from the state budget, ensuring that your tax dollars are used efficiently and effectively. Education is key to our state's success, and I will work to find innovative solutions to improve our students' learning experiences, setting them up for success as they enter adulthood. Furthermore, I will advocate for policies that support our small business owners and farmers, which are the backbone of our community. Safety is a fundamental concern for all Minnesotans, and it's clear that we need to address issues such as the retention of police officers. By tackling these challenges head-on, we can create safer communities where everyone can thrive. I'm committed to representing all constituents regardless of background or political affiliation, and I will work tirelessly to ensure that the voices of all citizens of District 18B are heard in St. Paul. Together we can build a better future for our state.
Thank you, Dar. Luke?
I just want to start with thanking again GMG and the Free Press for hosting this forum. I want to do an extra thank you for everyone that's here and staying past the 7 o'clock deadline. I think it was worth it. I think that with as big of a forum as this is, I think this is that we're doing the community a service here by staying this long, so I just want to thank everybody here. My hope is if you didn't know me before this forum, that you kind of got a glimpse to see who I am. And I hope that then is enough for you to see where I'm going to lead, how I'm going to lead, that I believe in working across the aisle. I believe in compromising where we need to compromise, but without compromising on our values. And I'm going to continue in that space forever, as long as I'm elected into the legislature. So I'm an advocate for mental health. I'm an advocate for our community, for the average Minnesotan, and I'm not going to stop. So I ask for your support in the November election. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Bjorn?
Thank you so much for having this forum. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you to everyone who sat and listened to us have some real nice discussions on the issues. Like I said, I'm State Representative Bjorn Olson. I'm a teacher, I'm a farmer, I'm a soldier, I'm a former mayor, I'm a father and a husband who's worked tirelessly to promote the prosperity that we have down here in southern Minnesota. The way that we live is very different from the way they live in the Twin Cities, and I've tried very hard to fight to bring that to light. Like I said, I joined the Army in order to serve. I became a teacher to serve, and I became a mayor to serve. And now I'm asking for you to honor me once more and send me to St. Paul to serve you again. I'm Bjorn Olson. I would be honored to have your vote.
Thank you, Bjorn. Marisa.
My name is Marisa Allman, and thank you very much for inviting us here. It's a real treat for someone from our district to be able to come up and share this forum with you guys. So thank you very much, and thank you for all of you who so patiently waited and listened. It was very nice of you. I am a farmer. I am a small business owner. I am a mother, and I am a wife. And I am also a fifth-generation Watonwan County farmer. My mother still lives on our home place. And I feel that I understand the rural-city divide. I feel that I could be that voice to help the rural people understand what is going on in the cities and vice versa. And I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you for everyone for hanging in with us. We went a little long, but all the candidates came to me before the forum and said, can we go longer, Andy? And I just agreed to it. So thank you for that. So please join me in thanking our candidates for being here this evening. Thank you to Joe Spear with the Mankato Free Press for your partnership this evening. Thank you to the City of Mankato for hosting us. Thanks to all of you for attending this evening. This forum has been recorded and will be available online along with candidate biographies at greatermankatoelections.com. Thank you, good night, and don't forget to vote.